Welcome to Mental Survival, the channel where we talk about the psychological aspects of survivalism and prepping. My name is Cliff Hamrick, and today we're going to be talking about belief systems. Just a little background on me. Part of the sort of work that I do with clients is I use a modality called cognitive behavioral theory. And cognitive behavioral therapy, also called CBT, uses a concept called schema. And schema are basically belief systems, so that's why I just call them belief systems. In this theory, the idea is our beliefs, our inherent beliefs, are part of what drives us to think and feel and act the way that we do. So part of the therapy that we do is we try and dig down into what people believe and then try and help work on those that will help have the spillover effect into all these other aspects of a person's life. And so first, when we talk about belief systems, we're not talking about religious beliefs. We're not talking about if Jesus was the Son of God, or if there is a God, or if there isn't a God, or anything else like that. What we're mainly talking about is beliefs about yourself and the world and your place in it and your role in it and that sort of thing. So the sort of beliefs that we're talking about are things like people are basically good. I can trust people. The world is a safe place. People in power will use that power responsibly, or power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. These are the sort of beliefs that we're talking about. And these sort of beliefs that people have will spill over into the rest of their lives. For instance, if someone who believes that power corrupts, then they'll probably be a little suspicious of people in power, which means that might also dictate on what sort of political party they vote for, or do they trust the police, or do they even trust scientific studies, or anything else like that. So you can see how this sort of belief system can spill over into other areas as well. The way beliefs work is they're sort of like the operating system of your brain. If you think about a computer, the computer is the hard drive, and then you can take that computer and you can put a different kind of operating system on it, and then that operating system is going to dictate how the computer can be used, what it will see, what it will recognize, what it won't recognize, what will work with, what won't work with. For instance, in my office I have an Apple computer to use for all my office stuff, but at home I have a PC that I use for video editing and that sort of thing, but I also use it for like playing games and that sort of thing. Those two computers won't talk to each other. If I take a program off of my Apple computer and I try and put it on my PC won't see it. It doesn't recognize it. It doesn't even see it as a computer program at all. And in some ways, that's how our belief systems work. Is your brain is your hardware, it's your computer, so to speak. Then the beliefs is a sort of operating system, the sort of basic understanding of how the universe works. And we start building those beliefs almost from day one, as we experience the world. A baby who cries when he's hungry is learning something about the world, depending on how often and how quickly mom feeds him. If he's allowed to just lay there and cry for hours on end, then what baby kind of learns is, well, I can cry all I want and nobody's going to come to help me. And then that becomes a belief as well. Will I be cared for? Will I be nurtured? And through other parts of our life, through other parts of our living, these experiences are going to also change our beliefs as well. I think our beliefs change as we get older because we have more experience and we can see more examples of this in our lives. And so that's also going to change our beliefs as well. One of the things that we know with beliefs is because this is our basic understanding of how the world works, our beliefs filter information out. One of the popular misconceptions of perception is that the human brain is just constantly like recording everything that's happening at all times. It's like a video camera that just sort of records blankly everything that happens without any judgments, without any filters or anything else like that. And that's not actually the case. We are constantly filtering out information. If you've ever been to a place where and someone's car alarm always goes off, after a while you just kind of ignore it. because your brain learns that car alarm is not important anymore. It doesn't mean anything. It just goes off all the time because a bird landed on it, and that's all it took. So our brain just starts filtering out that information. There was a study done a while back in which the researchers sent a bunch of X-rays to various radiologists. They asked me to be a part of this study. They told them that we were studying some sort of new X-ray techniques, and what we were going to do was to get some input from radiologists. And so just take a look at these X-rays and then tell us if you notice anything that seems out of place. And the radiologist would look them over, and they sent them back, and they had comments like, I noticed it seemed a little too dark in this area, or there's not enough detail over in this area, or there might be like a tumor in this other area, some other growth. What none of the radiologists pointed out was that there was a picture, perfect picture of Mickey Mouse in the upper left-hand corner. None of them saw it. None of them mentioned it. They didn't see it because they weren't looking for it, because they believed they're being a part of a legitimate study on X-rays. They were not expecting to see anything as goofy as Mickey Mouse in the corner. Another example, which is an old story, I don't know if it's true, but I always liked this story, was that when the Spaniards were coming to the New World, coming towards Mexico, the Aztecs didn't have sailing ships. They had never seen sailing ships like that. So they had no context for what these things were. And so people just didn't notice them. They just ignored them, because even though they're off far on the horizon, they just, it didn't fit with their belief system, their understanding of how the world works. Apparently, the shaman noticed it, because the shamans are used to seeing things a lot of people don't necessarily see. But he didn't have any context for what it was either. So best he could come up with was it looked like a wooden house with a cloud over it. If you kind of think of like a wooden sailing ship with a sail over it, that's kind of what it would look like from a distance. And he would even point out to people, so do you see the house with the clouds over it on the water? And people still didn't see it. They thought it was crazy. It wasn't until the ships got much closer to the point that they couldn't be ignored anymore that people finally did notice them and see them. But this is how our belief systems can affect how we see things. I had another instance where I was working with someone who was a guy who had a lot of insecurities around women and dating and that sort of thing. And he had gone to a party, and he was quite proud of himself for going to the party, but he was also really disappointed because there was this one woman who he was attracted to. He was talking to her. She was kind of giving the cold shoulder, and he just kept going on and on about how this just reinforced his belief that women don't find him attractive, people don't like him, that sort of thing. And then he would also kind of point out, and the other bad part was just there's this other woman who was just constantly annoying him because she was always talking to him and interrupting him when he was trying to talk to the other woman. It didn't make sense to him that this woman might actually find him attractive, even though this other woman did not, because that doesn't match his belief system. His belief is, I'm not attractive to women, and so when there's another piece of evidence that doesn't match that belief system, the brain just kicks it out. And this happens a lot, is that the brain looks at information that's coming in, and it decides, does this match the belief system? And if it does, then it gets through. And if it doesn't, then it either gets ignored or minimized. So, if someone believes that all cops are bad, and then they come across a cop that actually is kind of helpful, part of their brain is either not going to remember it, they won't tell the story later, or they'll just minimize it. And they're like, well, I guess he's one of the good ones, Or in that instance, he probably was only being nice because, some other situation going on there. So one of the reasons why we have to really watch over our belief systems is it really does impact how we view reality. A common belief system that comes up a lot in survivalism and prepper world is the confirmation bias, or the normalcy bias. The normalcy bias is the notion that things will stay the same, things will always be the way they are now. This belief system may be hardwired into the human brain. I don't think this is necessarily something you learn. I think this is just how our brain operates, is that things will always be as they are now. And what this means is that in a situation in which things start to slowly degrade or start to slowly decay, people aren't going to notice it. They're going to kind of always want to come up with an excuse or a way that everything's going to be okay. Things will stay the same. They're not going to change. Classic case is a lot of the Jews in Nazi Germany. It wasn't like Hitler was elected and then overnight everybody got pushed into a concentration camp. There was these years of laws being changed, of being eroded, of people having their businesses taken away and forced to move into ghettos, and slowly so on and so on and so on, until the point that before you know it, millions of people are being killed because it just sort of crept up on them, and no one ever really had a reason to believe things were going to be different than they were before, and so they kind of kept making these excuses for how things weren't going to be different. I think it's in a more down-to-earth context, that's also the reason why some people get stuck in abusive relationships. Is if the abuser punched him in the face and called him horrible names on the first date, there would never be a second date. They would immediately call the cops, have that guy arrested for assault, and be done with it. But they usually don't. They usually can be quite charming and quite nice and fun and exciting and all that. And then over time, the control and the manipulation and the emotional abuse, and the verbal abuse, and then eventually the physical abuse all starts to creep in. But one of the reasons why they stay in that situation is because they have this normalcy bias. Part of their brain still believes that things will be like they were in the past. And the confirmation bias is also something that is inherent to the belief system, is that we don't really want to challenge our beliefs, and that's something that the brain does. Logic doesn't really challenge beliefs. Logic is looking for reasons to support those beliefs. Like I gave the example of the guy who just believed that he wasn't attractive to women. The evidence that was true came through loud and clear. This woman wasn't talking to him, she wasn't paying attention to him, and so he could easily say, yes, that fits my belief system because I'm not attracted to women, this woman is not being attracted to me, so there you go, that's just how things are. But the other, the counter argument of, well, this other woman does talk to me, does find me interesting, that doesn't get through. That gets minimized because that doesn't fit the belief system. And so this other very valuable piece of information that probably would have made the guy much happier didn't really make it through. So the reason why understanding your beliefs is very important is because that's going to dictate a lot of your reactions to things, the way you think about things and that sort of thing. It is the reason why you might get mad in certain situations and someone won't. If you remember when we talked about emotions a while back, an incident and emotion and a logical thought and reaction are all separate steps. And what dictates those is your belief system. If you're driving down Mopac and someone cuts you off, you're going to have an emotional reaction, and part of that's going to be dictated by your belief systems. If you believe that the world is an inherently scary and dangerous place, you're probably going to react with fear because this person pulling out in front of you has sort of demonstrated that the world is a scary and dangerous place, and now that belief system comes right through, and so you'll respond by fear and think, well, driving's too scary, I can't do this, I need to get off the road right now, I should never be driving anyway, it's just too dangerous. If you believe that people should be looking out for others, then you might get mad because this person's pulling in front of you, he's not paying attention clearly, almost caused a wreck with you, and then that's going to make you mad because people should be looking out for other people. He should be looking where he's going. He should be watching for other cars on the road. And again, none of these belief systems are true. That's another aspect of belief systems, is they are all inherently bullshit. Your beliefs are bullshit. Because there is no belief that is 100% true in 100% of situations, in 100% of the time. There's always a gray area. Problem is your brain doesn't necessarily think of it in those terms. As far as your brain is concerned, this is a black and white topic, and it responds like that. Now, logically, we might be able to argue these things, but remember, logic, in a way, is just a program that's running on our operating system. So logic is really just being dictated by our belief systems. And our belief systems are a lot more hardwired. They're a little more like our emotions. And that's why we have such a fast emotional response. So one of the things that you should do is kind of start looking at your own belief systems as objectively as you can. There's some resources. I'm going to try and find them, and if I can, I'll put them in the description on tests that you can take that will kind of help you determine what your belief systems are. And this is not to say your beliefs are right or wrong, but it's much more of a question of, are they healthy or not healthy? And even then, is it a case more of, are they helpful to you in a particular situation? And what you need to do is at least be aware of these things, so that way when you're in that situation, you can kind of know that, oh, the reason why I'm reacting like this is because I believe this, and this may not necessarily be true. It's also very helpful to, when we're dealing with other people, is to kind of get an idea of what their belief systems are, and that will help you figure out where they're coming from. Because if we have to deal with people, deal with their emotions, if we're in a survival situation, or if we're in close quarters, even if it's just, at workplace or at school where you can't really necessarily get away from people, then you have to be able to at least understand where they're coming from, and then that'll make dealing with them a little bit easier. But anyway, I think that's all I have for this week, and I will see y'all next week. Thanks. Bye.